Hello and welcome to Curdcast, the podcast for people who like to eat cheese. I'm your host, Jen Mason, and with me today is my egg-eating co-host, Julie Faith Van Balzer. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
I'm looking forward to this. Break My Fast is our theme today. Our Break My Fast breakfast themed cheese box, which, by the way, does not need to be eaten at breakfast. And for those of you who are new here, what the heck are Julie and I doing? Well, we are eating through a box of cheese, our Curdbox, which is a cheese and pairing subscription box, cheese and pairing experience that we send to your house every month. It revolves around a theme. This month's theme is Break My Fast, so play on breakfast. Basically we walk through it, we talk through the exciting things, we tell you a little bit about the makers, and wet your whistle. You can get your own box to eat along with us at curdbox.com. And our box this month is fun things to do with breakfast. So before we started, Julie was just saying that eggs are the focus of her breakfast. The breakfast of her dreams include eggs. I'm a big egg person as well, which is killing us right now because the price of eggs.
Gotta be a millionaire.
I had a friend actually gift me a dozen. She has chickens, and gift me a dozen beautiful eggs. Not one of them was the same color. They were so many shades of everything. They were beautiful, and I'm halfway through, and they taste lovely. I feel very special.
That's awesome.
I once had a dozen eggs that like 8 of the eggs had a double yolk in them.
Whoa, yeah. That must be so lucky. That's like a lottery playing kind of day.
It was so funny because I think I had 2 eggs for breakfast, and I broke one and it was a single yolk, and broke the other one, was like, oh, it's a double yolk. And so I just assumed it was a one-time thing. And then the next day was like, told my husband, I had a double yolk today. I'm feeling lucky. Time to get lottery. I never buy a lottery ticket, but I feel like I needed to. And then the next day I had 2 eggs with double yolks, and I was like, starting to not feel as lucky. Feels like maybe this is a new thing. Did I miss the memo that all eggs will have double yolks? So I'm not sure what happened. It wasn't like a farm stand, it was regular, got them at the grocery store, but I found the secret lucky double yolk.
Double cholesterol.
Double cholesterol. It was so good. Because this month's box is breakfast, I wanted to have you think about, because we sometimes tell people where we come up with the pairing. So we're going to do a little practice here on, if you were going to do a box with breakfast, what are different flavors you would consider to think about that we might put in a box? Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would go, if we're going sweet, I definitely have to go like cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely want to throw in all those kind of warm flavors like maple, anything kind of like bready or doughy. And then, if you go over to like more sweet stuff, I think of like oatmeal, which you might have like lemon or honey or something else kind of sweet with it, brown sugar maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the more savory side, I'm always going to go like bacon, eggs, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, then maybe we'll make you happy, even though there's no eggs in this box, because we pulled some flavors from that list. Well, we didn't pull them from the list. I made a separate list and pulled them from that, and you just magically matched my list of considerations. But that's kind of how we come about with our some of our themes, is sort of thinking if we're pairing it with say a red wine, we're going to think about all the things that pair with that red wine, and then try to figure out how those become pairings or cheeses. So this one's kind of fun and kind of easy to see how we got from the theme to what we put in the box. So I thought it would be fun to really sort of talk about this as we go, because I think this is one of our easiest sort of entry level way of thinking about how we do pairings. And I really want to encourage people to like come up with a theme of their own when they go shopping and they're going to make a cheese board, and think about how they could do this. So this is like cheese and pairing picking 101 is sort of built into this box. So let's start with our cheeses, and we're going to actually start with our goat's milk cheese, which is a Meyer lemon, and honey chev. And this comes from Cypress Grove out in California. It's a pasteurized cheese because it's a young cheese, so it has to be pasteurized because that's the rules here in the U.S. It has a vegetarian rennet, and
that is a desserty cheese. That's the best way I can think to describe it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like rich, it's creamy, that lemon flavor. It really makes it feel like, I mean, it feels a little bit like you could be eating something that had ricotta in it. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of
Mm-hmm.
richness, but then that like
Mm-hmm.
lemon in it.
Yeah. I think
Super
on the right bagel, right toasted bagel, that would also be really, really lovely too, with it just sort of melting in, or even on like a toasted English muffin, perfectly toasted English muffin where it is crunchy but still soft inside. So this is made by Cypress Groves. They make a bunch of different flavors. They specialize in goat's milk. And Mary Keene was the person who started this in the 1970s. She's a sort of self-proclaimed hippie. She's now retired, but she's still basically credited with helping sort of propel the American goat cheese industry to what it is today. And their farm, the American Humane Association, has endorsed this dairy as humane certified with 100% score for like 3 years
Wow.
running. So people sometimes ask us like about like, how do you know it's good cheese? In the artisan world of cheese, sometimes people don't worry about getting the awards or the certifications for it because they know they're just doing it and that's enough for them. And sometimes it costs a lot of money to have those justified, but this is really a community where they take care of their animals. And then on the Meyer lemon, just for a little note for people, because we thought lemons here, also honey, good breakfast foods, but Meyer lemons were named after a gentleman named Frank Meyer. He worked for the USDA, and he introduced the fruit to the US from China in 1908. And they believe that the Meyer lemon is sort of like a cross between a lemon and a mandarin orange. So they're smaller, juicier, and sweeter. And that's why a lot of times when you'll see something labeled, that it's lemon flavored, they'll add in the Meyer lemon because
So it's
should
not
know that
super sour.
yeah, exactly.
I had no idea that Meyer lemons were from China. I would have assumed they were from like Italy.
It's I'm learning more and more these days about the fascinating world of citrus, because I've been spending a lot of time in Sicily and they do a lot of lemons there. I was actually on a lemon farm just a couple months ago in the middle of December because that's when lemons grow. And I learned so much. This farm was growing lemons on the stalk. The main part of the tree was actually wild orange tree stock because it was known, it's been in Sicily for so long that it knows how to grow in Sicilian weather. And so they put the strongest thing, it's like, standing in good boots on slippery ice, it's standing there, and then they would just graft the lemon tree on top of an orange base. I just was like mind blown.
So interesting.
I have so much to learn. There's never a time to stop learning. Okay, so we've had our honey and lemon. Maybe we put this on a bagel, and now I think it's time to move to our maple side of things and try the Gouda, which has the little dots in it for the people who can see it, and that's fenugreek. So this is made by Marieke in Wisconsin, and Marike's first official batch of cheese was made in late 2006, and by 2007, she took a wheel of this Gouda with the fenugreek and took it to the U.S. championships, cheese championships. It'd be funny if she took it to like the U.S. ski championships or something. The cheese championships in Madison, and she took first place in 2007 on her very first attempt.
Wow.
So fenugreek is seed. It's a very hard seed. It's been sitting in cheese, so it's softened here. And it's usually ground. It has kind of a nutty maple flavor. I've been told that it's what's used in sort of what my father-in-law called plastic syrup. So not the original syrup, but what you get, at the grocery store. It's one of the the things they put in there to make it
Interesting.
taste like maple.
It's definitely not like a Gouda. Like I think of Goudas as very dry, as I guess is the way that I would put it. And this is a super creamy,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
super creamy Gouda.
And it's younger. So the drier Goudas are usually more aged. This is only 2 to 4 months. So this is very young. You know, when we sell a lot of Gouda at our store that is 3-4 years old. And that has a definitely, it's like really intense. Everything that you're tasting now gets more and more intense. And fenugreek is common in lots of European food, European, Indian, North African, Middle Eastern. And it's used a lot in pickles, sauces, curries, vegetable dishes, and soups. So interesting cheese. And
very
you get
strong flavor.
Yeah. And it's a strong flavor, but it's like an essence of maple. Like you get it's sort of maple adjacent, but the flavor is I don't know. It's really good.
It
I
feels
think it's
more
very interesting.
savory to me than maple.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just my palate, but like I feel it as like there is a hint of something sweet in it, but it still feels like very salty and cheesy and kind of like soft and creamy and like it's the kind of cheese that like you notice. It's not like a bland anything
Yeah.
cheese.
Yeah. It's like the McGriddle of the cheese world. You know, it's got a little sweetness in there, but it's still a savory cheese. It was interesting, and I wanted to introduce people to the fenugreek, and there are lots of other foods in there that have that. So if you're thinking about really any of one of those cultures and doing something sort of based on them, even if it's not a culture that has strong sort of cheese story, you could still like take the flavors that you would normally see and put them in what you're going to pair with. And, you know, it can just be inspired by something that you really love. Okay. Then our last cheese for today, and then we're going to start talking about pairings, is our 1833 Vintage Reserve. So whenever you see reserve on a cheese, it means the cheese was reserved. It means at some point somebody tasted the cheese. It's most likely a reserve cheese is sold as non-reserve too. And they like it enough. They can stick one of the little, it looks like a little circular scooper. I don't know, for lack of a better word, but it just, you just twist it in. And then when you twist it out, you pull out, they would taste a little bit of the cheese and then put that plug back in and seal it up. And if it passes, if everything they like still is tasting really great and they think it'll only get better, they'll pull those aside and reserve them and let them age a little longer. Then they get more salty, drier, usually more firm, can be sometimes more brittle. This is definitely a cheese. I don't know how you cut yours, Julie, but as you can see,
it kind of crumbled for me.
It just crumbles. Yeah. And that's the nature of a cheddar cheese. And this is a farmstead cheese. So farming it, they have the cows, they make it and they age it all in one place. They've been making cheese. I know, right? And you know, it's a very savory cheddar.
Yes,
I think
it is. It's beautifully salty. It's like, I mean, pungent in the best possible terms. It's intense. It's like, you know, you're gonna like if you had a sandwich that had like a slice of apple, a slice of this cheddar, and a slice of turkey, you would absolutely know the cheese was there, and it would be fantastic. As opposed to sometimes the cheese is just there to add texture, but this really adds flavor.
Yeah, and it's sort of like when I'm tasting this one, I've sort of at first I get sort of the tang, and then really quickly after that, it's like it changes flavor and becomes very brothy and almost meaty tasting. It's complex, and that's especially interesting because this is a pasteurized cheese, and we've talked on the podcast before that sort of having a secondary continuing lingering flavor is more likely to happen in a raw milk cheese, which is why so many people like raw milk cheeses, but this still has a little bit of that too, which is really great. And these guys are considered to be the oldest surviving cheddar makers in the world. So people could have been making cheddar before them, but they're not necessarily still making it. And because of this, they're sort of the sole guardians of a unique collection of the country's last remaining original cheese starter culture. So there's cultures that are put in cheese, and that's kind of what makes the difference between a Gouda and a cheddar, besides how it's made and how it's pressed and how long it's aged. And you get that culture. Cheddar is coming from the area you're in. So it could come from the caves, and it could come that it's aged in. It could come from basically, you think about like a sourdough starter. You just keep
I was just
adding to
thinking
it.
about a sourdough starter.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
keep it alive.
Not the
and
same
pet it and
exact
love it.
process. It's not, but it keeps growing, and you keep having it. So the fact that they're keeping that alive is very interesting. So if you want to know what cheddar tasted like in 1833, it's probably pretty close to this. It's going to be a little different because the cows probably are eating different feed. It's a different world, even if they've always been eating in the same field. It's just changed, something's changed over time. But this is probably going to be the closest cheddar you can get to tasting something from almost 200 years ago, which is really interesting. And it's a delicious cheese. And the other interesting thing from this place is that they will take the liquid from the cheese making process and turn it into a protein powder, and it gets used in infant formula and in other products too. So it's always interesting when you hear, we sometimes think about the one product that somebody makes, and you forget that there are probably other things they're doing with the peels, with the shells, with the, sometimes it
hope
could be
so, right? Lots of byproducts
exactly,
that they are
yeah.
exploring.
And we've had companies on here where they're using the byproduct. We had some vegetable chips once, and so it's just always interesting. I love those little stories. Okay, so you feeling happy about your breakfast cheeses? All right, so let's talk pairings. So it's breakfast, so we need to have coffee or tea, and today we're going to have some chai with our chai pecans. And I loved our packaging this month. I just was fun to photograph of our chai. We have some cinnamon sugar. I love Pop Daddy's packaging, and then the sweetest little bottle of Truby whipped honey. All right, so let's try some nuts. I love a good flavored pecan. I don't eat a lot of pecans like by themselves, but once they're like flavored, it becomes one of my favorites.
Ooh, this is yummy. 2 words. And really has that chai feeling to it.
And it makes the pecan so crunchy, but not hard. Like,
yeah, not that like break
really
a tooth
good
thing.
Not at all.
Oh, I could eat that whole bag without even thinking about it. That is good.
Excellent. So these guys are made by Isadora Nuts. The founder, Tasya Kellen, had this idea for making a healthier snack after regular visits to her farmer's market. But what I find even more interesting about the business, and I love to point out interesting things about the business, and it really has nothing to do with how good these nuts are, which we just said they're delicious. But in 2018, she learned that like 82% of adults with disabilities are unemployed. So she decided to open her workplace for people of all abilities. And she's began partnering with social service organizations and advocating for people with disabilities. And now more than half of the staff at Isadora Nut Company, Isadora was named after her grandfather, Isadore. Half of their employees are adults with developmental or intellectual disabilities. And I think that's awesome and not easy. It's not easy. You have to figure out a whole different way of working, of communicating, of training, and doing all that stuff. I would say it's like 200% worthwhile. But, there's the easy way to do things. And then there's the like good, right? Putting good out into the world, not just good nuts, but a good workplace too. So,
as they say, you can still do well while doing good.
Exactly. So, and these taste well and good. So, definitely kudos to the team there at the Isadora Nut Company, because we love your nuts. We're nuts about them. And this company, because we got a couple representing from the Midwest, is a Minnesota-based company. Okay, staying in the Midwest, we're going to go to one of our. We've had them in a couple times. We're going to Pop Daddy and their cinnamon sugar, which pretzels, which taste to me a little bit like I'm having a breakfast churro.
Mm. It's a wonderful combo of the salty of the pretzel and the sweet of the cinnamon sugar that really scratches at, like, you're right, that churro, that donut, that like graham cracker, and that's like slightly sweet and salty. I don't know. These are definitely snackably delicious.
It's a good balance of cinnamon and sugar. It doesn't feel too sweet. I don't know. Pretzels, I always feel, are like the tamer of this. Like, they really like just go, listen, we're just ourselves. We're just a pretzel. We're pretzel first. We're not dessert. We're not a meal. We're just pretzels. I like pretzels in any shape, size, flavor, hot, cold. Those giant, big Bavarian ones. I love me a pretzel, but I'm a salty, savory girl. And whenever I can have salty, savory, something that's mostly that, but with the hint of the sweet, then I'm a really happy girl. Because
this vaguely reminds me of what kettle corn manages to do, where it's salty and sweet at the same time, and it's still savory. Although sometimes kettle corn is too sweet for me, but this is kind of just right, perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
It's also kind of cinnamon toasty. Like, I get that cinnamon toast feeling when you make like just toast with butter and then cinnamon and sugar. That's totally what these pretzels are.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so, which is why they ended up in the box. And just an update. I know we've talked about them before, but we've talked about them. So they started out as sort of a popcorn company. They made flavored popcorn. I think it's so funny that what happened is, like, a family cousin made flavored pretzels and brought them to an event in her, like, pretty little Tupperware kind of container. And everybody that sort of ate them loved them, and they brought some to share with their employees. Employees were like, well, we do flavored stuff. Like, let's add this to our list. So I thought that was pretty cool. That, entrepreneurs are always looking for new opportunities. And if you have a good sort of team, if your employees see what you're doing, then they're going to offer ideas, and they're going to, when they see something come across, it just makes small companies can do really great things, because you just, the lowest person on the totem pole gets to talk to the tallest person, the highest person on the totem pole. And all, when everybody can have a say, sometimes really great things come out of that. So, so kudos to Pop Daddy. We love their stuff. We carry it in our store as well. And I love this one as our cinnamon toast addition to our breakfast. I'm excited to start tasting these, for you to start tasting these together. I've tasted them all, but we have one more to go. This beautiful little whipped honey. This is Truby honey. And for those of you who are getting the box and are eating along with us, if yours is solid, so I had kept my whole box in the fridge for this, so mine was like really solid. I just put the jar in a thing of hot water just to get it room temperature. It doesn't need to be refrigerated, but it's lovely and drippy, but it's whipped. And the founder of this, Laura Kimball, basically, this is like the Give a Mouse cookie story. Basically, Laura bought her husband Jeff a beehive for Christmas. One thing led to another, and now they own Truby. So be careful what you gift your spouse. You never know when they're going to start a new business.
I was going to say, how about your cheese birthday party?
I know, this is your fault. I opened a cheese store. Julie told me I should celebrate my 45th birthday, and next thing you know, I had a really great birthday party, and then we decided I had to open a cheese store. But it's not bad. How many boxes?
Imagine if we'd gone to a strip club on your birthday instead.
It would be like a strip mall birth. Is more is more my speed. But yeah, think of how many thousands and thousands of people have had a cheese box because you told me to have a birthday party for myself. So thank you for
Spreading
that.
the joy of cheese.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, I'm going to use one of my pretzels here, just so I'm not going to use my finger in front of everybody. But
Oh, I'm going to use my finger.
excellent. This is so, there's something about this that's very reminiscent of my childhood. I'm going to a very sort of comfort food, happy memory sort of place. I don't know if my parents used to buy whipped honey that I am remembering, but I just love this stuff. And it's so funny because it's just whipped honey, but there's something about the texture of it. I just want to play with the little jar. I am just literally just spinning this jar because it's fun. I'm going to do ASMR and tactical honey videos, but and these guys are out of Tennessee, and the family used to live sort of in the snowy part of Tennessee. I guess they don't now, so they named this product Tennessee Snow after their love of snow, which I think is really good. But by tasting this last one, it now leads us to pairing our cheeses with our pairings, and seeing what I'm
going to start with the
like
pecan and the fenugreek Gouda.
Oh, nice. Well, I will do pecan and the Meyer lemon.
That is a nice, creamy.
Oh my goodness.
It makes it chai latte because it suddenly makes it creamy.
It does the same thing with the bright Chev. Oh my goodness. Super, super delicious.
I'm going to have to go Chev honey.
Oh.
Let's see. All day long. That's amazing. That is like, so I can see you can make the most beautiful little appetizers, take a little cracker or something, put the Chev on it, a little bit of that honey, and people would lose their minds. It's so yummy.
A savory shortbread would be really interesting. Yeah, I'm having a little of the Tennessee Snow on the cheddar. And it is really fascinating because it's definitely sweet from the honey, but that cheddar was so savory. I hope the people watching are thinking, if they don't have a box, hoping they're thinking, we should get a box.
Oh, yeah, box.
But I hope they're starting to see, while you're tasting things, I'm going to do a little talking about how we take an idea, the theme that we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, and turn it into this. So, we've got our cinnamon toast. We've got some maple syrup. I like to think of the goat cheese sort of as the cream cheese of the, breakfast world. We've got some chai, tea, so putting that all together. And then, obviously cheddar is in so many breakfast sandwiches and breakfast foods and omelets and all that stuff. Just missing the eggs. That's what we should have called this theme. Just missing eggs.
Just add eggs.
Yeah. So, but think about, you can think about this in terms of like, what would you do if the theme was picnic, or what would you do if the theme was, just looking at the fenugreek, if it was an Indian themed,
so funny. The first theme that came to mind for me was circus, because like when I think of circus, I think of like peanuts and popcorn and cotton candy and all sorts of stuff that I feel like you could,
that could be very fun.
Put in there. But I think I love the idea of having a theme for virtually anything, because, we've reached a point in our lives, I think, as adults, where we tend not to have like my Paw Patrol 45th birthday, right? But at the same time, there is an idea, like if you have a dinner party and you're trying to think about how to make it cohesive, if you just think of a theme in your head, nobody has to know, but it's like you're thinking of it, and it just makes all the decisions easier.
Exactly. I mean, so my husband loves Cuban sandwiches. I could make a Cuban sandwich. I know, but think about a Cuban sandwich inspired themed cheese board. You can have Swiss on there. You can probably have a couple different kinds of Swiss. You could probably add a cheddar. Um, and or
Ham,
maybe a mustard
pickles.
cheese, a mustard, a pickle, some really great either hearty crackers to sort of represent the bread, or just
Mhm.
bread. Yeah,
Delicious.
so many. I mean, that's like one of the easiest ones you could do. Um, you take apart a Reuben and
Mhm.
do something with that. There's so many
Mhm.
fun things that you can be inspired by. What would you do if you made a
Mm.
pizza themed one? Obviously, it would have pepperoni on it. Does it also have? There's some really cool mushroom jerky out there.
Mhm.
Even some like new. It's like a flash. It's not a flash frozen, but a freeze dried
Mhm.
mushrooms that are like crunchy, really
You
delicious.
could
Like
totally
do
do
that.
just like
Onion Jane.
I was so I was reading through the Victory Garden cookbook the other day because I was looking for new like vegetable ideas. The Victory Garden cookbook is an
Mm-hmm.
old cookbook that's just dedicated to vegetables, and like each chapter is 100% dedicated to a single vegetable, like deep dive
Oh,
into kohlrabi, right?
oh, excellent.
Or anything else. But what I was thinking is you could totally just theme something around like how can you exploit celery in a million different ways?
Oh my
What
gosh,
are
so
the
much.
things, you know what I mean? For any
Yeah.
single one flavor or idea. And I think we've done in the past like comparing three cheddars, comparing
Mhm.
three goudas, like all that stuff is so fun.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, so I mean, I hope this is a sort of an easy way for people to sort of look at what do you mean by theme, Jen, and Julie? What do you mean? That you could think about this. And if you put together your own theme, definitely send it to us. Hello@curdbox.com. And you never know, maybe it'll be our next Curdbox. But until then, let's tell people. Oh, do you have any favorite? What was your favorite thing you've tried?
I have to say the honey
Mm-hmm.
on the cheddar is
Mm-hmm.
killer, but also the honey
Yes.
on everything is really good.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I think it's the extreme salt of the cheddar with the super sweet of the honey for me just
Yeah.
does that thing.
Yeah, it really does. I would say the pecans with the chev
Oh my
was
gosh.
maybe my favorite. It really tasted like a creamy chai
Mhm.
tea. So I'm going to finish that up when we're done here. All right. So people can find more on from Julie at What Julie Ate. And from our makers, you can find more about our Chev and all the delicious cheeses at Cypress Grovers and at Marike Gouda's, where you can find out more about Marike and all her delicious award winning. They've had 166 awards so far on their cheeses. So
Wow.
go check them out at Marike Gouda. Our vintage reserved cheddar is coming from at Barber's Cheesemakers. The chai pecans are coming from at Isidore Nut Co. Um, at Pop Daddy Snacks is where you can find out more about the flavored popcorn and all of the delicious foods that Pop Daddy makes, all in their really gorgeous. God, like, I love their design. And then finally, our at Truby Honey is where you can find out more about Truby and the story of how if you give a mouse a beehive, you'll open a bee honey. Are there other honeys? You will open a honey business. You can get your own Curdbox at curdbox.com. Come back here next month and we'll have our March box. You can follow us at curdbox.com. And thanks for hanging out with us, Julie. Thanks so much for eating breakfast with me this afternoon. and uh,
Anytime.
and we'll see everybody next month.